It's the new school year and kids are returning to school after a long summer break. Now for you this might be a bit of a relief as perhaps you don't have to worry about your kids entertaining them over that holiday. However, for some children this can be a really difficult and challenging transition. So what can parents and adults do to help manage this difficult situation for some children? Hi guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and this week we're going to be looking at easing your children into the new school year. Now I want to make sure I say thank you because we actually had a GetPsyched viewer who recommended this video and I thought it was a fantastic topic. It's really applicable to this kind of month, this time of year where children are going back to school, and it can actually be a really challenging transition for some children, and it's probably quite beneficial to understand why it's so challenging and to think about some top tips on how to mediate that challenge for some young people. So a huge shout out and thank you for that suggestion from our GetPsyched viewer. If you've got any topics that you would like to know more about on GetPsyched, then you can drop me an email on my Facebook page, on our new Instagram page, which is now @_GetPsyched_. You can message me on the Twitter account, you can message me on here, you can get in touch with me and suggest some topics that you would like to see from GetPsyched and I'll make sure to consider them. Anyway, let's go on with the video. It probably comes as no surprise that kids can find starting school really challenging, and even if they've been in school for a while, they can find it challenging to get back into the routine of school. Fears and separation anxiety are probably pretty evident around this time of year. But what exactly causes this separation anxiety, and what exactly is separation anxiety? Now, it's very normal for children up to 18 months to experience separation anxiety, even a little bit older. It's very common for children to experience anxiety when they're separated from their parents. However, when a child older than 6 experiences separation anxiety for longer than 4 weeks, then that would probably be diagnosed as separation anxiety disorder. Now, the symptoms of this are numerous and come in many different ways. For example, they can be physical, where children experience headaches or stomach aches. They can have nightmares or a fear of being alone in any social situation. They can refuse to sleep or actually refuse to go to school altogether. Now, what causes separation anxiety can vary. Things such as a severe traumatic or loss can cause separation anxiety. Things such as the change of an environment or the death of a loved one. Or things such as a stay in hospital or even overprotective parenting. All these things can cause separation anxiety for young people. Now, some research in separation anxiety actually states that parenting and the way that children are parented can be one of the biggest influences on separation anxiety. Things such as overprotective parenting or anxious parenting in some way can fuel separation anxiety in young people. And I think that's a really important message to get across when we're thinking about reducing separation anxiety in young people. Now, separation anxiety is of course extremely common and understandable when children are starting school for the first time or when they're going back after a long break like the summer. So how can you manage or help positively influence separation anxiety that children might be feeling when they're returning to school? Well, I'm going to give you 6 top tips on how to improve the separation anxiety that a young person might be feeling. The first tip is to work collaboratively with the school. It's really important to inform the school beforehand if you think that separation anxiety could be a big thing for your child. You might want to contact them a couple of weeks before and the days leading up to them starting to go back to school. And if there's not been any signs leading up to school, and this is a thing that happens kind of the morning of starting school, then just make sure to say to the school as you take your young person to the school. Collaborating this process with the school and with your parenting will make things a much smoother process. Now, when you do inform the school and when you work collaboratively with the school, make sure not to describe the difficulties that your child has, but make sure to talk about the things that they like, things that they enjoy, or things that might help distract them from their separation anxiety. This in turn will help ease that transition. Sometimes schools actually have what they call orientation sessions where they introduce children to the school for the first time. Now, this is often the case for children that are first starting school, but those orientation sessions can actually be really beneficial. It's no doubt that the move to a new school or starting school for the first time can be a really sharp and sudden change of schedule, change of routine, change of environment for young people. So it's important that we ease that transition as much as you can. Okay, so the second tip is to understand your own level of anxiety as an adult or as a parent. As I said earlier, a lot of separation anxiety actually starts with parenting. If you're anxious consistently, or if you're even anxious about your child starting school, then it's likely that your child will feel anxious and potentially feel anxious about starting or going back to school. Now, it might be the case where you actually have anxiety in general, and this is something that I would probably advise that you seek therapy about. Might sound a bit shocking to some people, but actually going and seeing a therapist can be a really positive experience, especially when you have challenges with anxiety. It's important that you learn to control that anxiety as this feeds into your child. Okay, the third tip is to introduce the concept of school early on in the summer or earlier on for your child who might be starting school for the first time. Again, this speaks back to easing that process, easing that transition. Explain some of the things that they might be doing in school. Involve them in the process of getting school clothes and school equipment. This in turn actually leaves very little to surprise. You've kind of introduced the concept of school, you've talked about what they might be doing, you've went shopping for the things that they're going to need, you've involved them in this full process. So that sudden and sharp change of environment and surroundings that can happen when they start school is reduced because you've introduced so many of these concepts beforehand. Talk to them about things such as the fact that they're going to meet new people, new children, that they're going to have a new teacher or different teachers, things like subjects that they might be learning as well. Anything that you can do to ease that transition is going to be positive. Okay, my fourth tip is thinking and considering about reading stories about starting back at school. There are so many options of books that talk about children starting the school year or going to school for the first time. This can be a fun and interactive exercise that can get children into that process of being excited about school rather than anxious. And in turn, it can help create a positive association with starting school or returning to school rather than a negative association. Okay, my fifth tip is to consider creating some solutions. If your child is showing anxiety or concern about starting school, then talk to them about creating some action plans of what they can do when they feel like that. So much about separation anxiety when starting school for young people is the fact that they're meeting new people, they're in a new environment, their schedule and their transitions have changed, and they don't understand who to go to ask for help, for example. It's important that you try and ease this process as much as possible, and you can do that with creating some action plans, creating some solutions for your young person. Simple things like creating action plans for your child to ask other kids if they want to play, or creating an action plan about asking a teacher for help when they should do that and how they should do that, or creating an action plan for your child to introduce themselves to other kids or new kids. Creating practical solutions that explain situations that are already quite challenging for the young person that result in reductions in separation anxiety can be a really positive step forward. Okay, my sixth and final tip is to make the small things as easy as possible. What I mean by this is things like having everything organised the night before, getting up in enough time to get ready for the school day, for that first school day after the summer, or that first school day in general for that child. Make those small things as simple as possible. You don't want to be rushing around the first morning of the new school year. You don't want to be trying to dig out school clothes or school equipment. Have that transition as smooth as possible. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching this week. This week we've been looking at easing your child into the new school year. That's something that can really bring on feelings of separation anxiety for children. Now, we looked at the top 6 tips, or my top 6 tips, for easing that transition of your child getting into that new school year. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, make sure to comment, like, share the video as well, and if you're enjoying GetPsyched in general, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, and you can hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, and you'll get weekly reminders every time I upload. Thanks so much for watching the video again this week, guys, and hopefully catch you next week.